Hello guys, Saurabh on this side, back again with a new tutorial video. In this video, we are going to learn how to integrate API in our Flutter app. So let's start the video. So guys, in the last two videos, we see about how to develop an API from scratch in Node and Express, and we also deployed that API in the remote server so that everyone can access it extensively. Okay, so in that video we are going to use that API that we are made in the last two videos. In case you don't see the last two videos, I will highly recommend that you to check out that two videos. That will be very much helpful to you to learn about the API development if you are new to that API development field. Okay, so in case you don't have interest to learn about the API development, that's totally fine. I made a postman in the last video where I make 4 different kind of requests of the API that we made. So I will put that postman link in the description of the video. We are going to integrate that APIs in our Flutter app. Okay, so for integrating that, I create a new Flutter project here, and I not change anything here new. So that's a default Flutter project created when we create a new Flutter project. After that, one more thing, for calling the API in from our Flutter application, what we have to do, we have to install a package from pub.dev name as HTTP. So how to install that? Go to the installing section, and here I copy that HTTP, and here under that pubspec.yaml, under that dependency section, come here you have to paste it here. Okay, then you can run flutter pubget, our favorite package, to install the packages. Okay, so the package is installed, but there is one more thing is left. We have to add the internet permission in the Android manifest.xml, otherwise that will be not work in the production. That will work in the debug mode without the internet permission, but in the production that will not work. So that's the internet permission we need to add, so that API should work from our application in the production mode as well. And one more thing, here you can see all the APIs having started with HTTPS, and in many of the time during the development you can see that API starting with HTTP instead of the HTTPS. So for that we have to maintain in our Flutter app, because calling from that HTTP will be blocked from the Flutter app as well. So what we have to do, under that application tab, here we have to add use clear text traffic tool. So if the API URL will be start from the HTTP, that will be handled by default by the Flutter. Okay, now all our configuration is done. Now it's time to run our project and make a decent screen so that we can call from the screen of that APIs, and we can show the data that is coming from the APIs in our screen. So let's run the app. So for running the app, what we have to do, we have to run the command flutter run. So let's wait for running that project. So guys, our app is started already, as you can see. Before making any screen, for calling the API, we have to make a class method so that we can separate the API calling method from the widget tree. So what we have to do, under that library folder, we have to make a new folder name as API, and under that API folder, make another new file name as API caller.dart. And here we have to make a class under that file, that is API caller. And now we have to make the methods that will call the respective API. So first thing first, I make a method that will call the get API. So I write here get data. Okay, that will be taking nothing of that. As you can see, there is no query, no params. So I can make that method as getter as well, and but that method will be asynchronous. But one more thing here, we install the package name as HTTP. We have to import it here. We have to import that package as object so that we can use it extensively. Write HTTP dot get to call the get API, and we have to paste now here that get API URL. Okay, and one more thing here, that will accept URI, not the URL. So we have to write URI.parse, and here the URL. Okay, now that this method will be asynchronous, that get will be written as await because API calling taking time. Now that the response will be come here. Now it's time to check if that response is success or not. We have to write response.status code, and that status code if 200, that means the data is coming right. So what we have to do, we have to just return response.body. Okay, and if the status code is not 200, that means the result is not successful. So what we have to do, we have to pass the empty string, and the return type as you can understand, that will be future of string. Okay, so in the same way we can call the post API. So what I should do here, I make a copy of it so that we can override the code. So here I write post data to call the post API, and in that post data we can make a getter here, because if you see here in the post data there is params present, many queries is present, so we have to make this as a method. So what I can do, I write here string param and here the query name. So the query is category, topic and language. So here I write string category, that will be by default required because we don't want to make it nullable. Category, topic and other parameter is language. Okay, now what we have to do, we have to just copy that and we can make edit on that API URL. Here I just replace that with that post API. Now what we have to do, here we have to provide the param here. So I just copy the param, and here instead of hard-coded param I just copy paste here. Okay, now here we have to change that query parameters value as well. So that will be category, and for the topic that will be topic, and for the language that will be language. Okay, in that way we can call the post API. And one more thing here is left. You can see here in the body the name and time is passing. So if I send here, you can see here the name and time that is already coming modified as we see in the last two videos. So what we have to do, we have to provide that name and time. So what we can do, we can take that name and time from the user as well. So here I write name and time as a named parameter. Okay, so what we have to do to pass that name and time as a body, we have to write, in case of post APIs, http.post, that is body. Okay, now in that body we can pass as many params as we want. For now there is two params present, one is name and I provide here name, and other is time, so I provide here time. Okay, that's why we can call the post API. And but one thing is here, in the get API a normal string is returning, but in the post API a JSON is coming here, so we can't just return that because we have to decode it at first. So what we should do, instead of returning that JSON response body, this is a string, we have to JSON decode it. For that we have to import a package that is present in the native dart library, that is dart convert. Okay, so that will help us to decode the JSON. So we have to write here json.decode. Okay, so here in that way we can return that JSON file, and if that response is not successful, what we have to do, we have to return a empty. We can provide the return type as dynamic. Okay, so I take the copy of it to make the put API, or I can write here update data, because put API is used for the update data, and here only that param is needed and other thing is not needed as well. Okay, now what we should do here, we have to come to that update data, we copy the URL, under that URI.parse I paste it here, and instead of hard-coded param I write here variable. Okay, now that body is not we want to pass as of now, just like in the post data post API body, you can pass the body in put and delete API as well. Okay, now what we have to do, in the same way the things is totally fine as of now, and instead of that http.post we have to write http.put. In the same way we can call the delete API, and we have to write here delete data, and we can provide the param here, instead of http.put that will be delete, and all the things is same. So that way we can make the API caller for get data, post data, update data and delete data. Okay, now it's time to make a decent UI so that we can integrate that API with that UI and show the data. So what we have to do, we have to close that file, and I flip it here, and after and in the library folder I make a new file name as main screen .dart. Here in that main screen we import our favorite package material .dart. Okay, and here we make a stateful widget that we just do in many of the videos of the series. So here I write main screen. Okay, decent UI here, so let's make it a split code so that you can make it at your own. We make a distance screen here. Now we have to call that screen constructor from that main home actually. So I just replace with that, and we have to import that package as it is not imported. I import the main screen dot dot, and we can remove that classes that is created by the Flutter by default. We change in the root of the project. We can change the title that API integration. As we change the root of the project, we have to make a hot restart. So I make a hot restart here, and as you can see, we make the main screen, that is our empty screen is showing here. Now what we should do, here in the child, I make a column. Now we have to provide the children. So for providing the children, what we have to do, we have to make a common method. That method will accept a onPressed method and a text. So that text will be used for that button text, and that onPressed method will be used for the respective button to be called. So here I write common button, and here that will be accept text and a callback method. So here I write void callback. Now we make a elevated button here, and here that onPressed method, as you know, that will be called when we click on that button. And here we have to write text that variable, and we have to give the distance style here. So here I write text style of font size of 22 and font weight of 600. Okay, that will be looking look decent. So I make it as a constant of the text style because it is hard coded. Now what we have to do, instead of that onPressed method, we have to provide here on tab, that is coming as a named parameter here. Now we have to call that common button from here. So we have to write button, and we have to provide the text call get API. Okay, so after that we make a significant page so that it will be looking good, and we have to make that button 3 times of post, put and delete. So we make the copy of 3 of it. Okay, now here I write call post API, call put API, or betterly to say call update API, and here call delete API. Now if I make a hot reload here, let's see how it will look. So that the 4 decent button is coming here. Now let's first call that through that call get API button, the call get API method, so that we can take the data of it. So the return data will be hello viewers, and this is coming as a normal string. We don't do any of the fancy stuff to show that data. We can show that data in a snack bar as well. So what we should do here, now I make the method at the bottom of that screen. So okay, now what we should do here, we make it asynchronous, because if you see here under that API caller dot dot, all the method is asynchronous. So we have to call that method get data. One more catch is here, if we want to call that get data, we have to first make the object of it, then we have to call that get data with that object. Instead of that, I make every of that method mentioned here under that API caller as static, so that we can call it from the class name itself. No need to make the object of it. Okay, now what we should do here, in the main screen we write here API caller dot get data, and that is a return method. We don't have to provide any method params. So that will be a asynchronous process, so we have to write await here. Now that will be return a string, so we can write here data, and we will show that data in the snap bar. But there is a catch, as you know, in that get data, if the response is not 200, that will be return a empty string. So what we have to do, that final message, so we have to check here, if data is empty, response failed, and if it is not empty, that means the response is successful. So we have to write here response successful, and then we have to show the response. So the response is data. Okay, scaffold messenger dot off context dot show snack bar, and that will be snack bar widget particularly, and the content will be a text of it, and we have to provide that final message. Okay, now what we have to do, if we make a hot reload, And now if we call the call get API button, as you can see, response successful, hello viewers. But as you can see, calling that button and that response is taking a few seconds of time. That may be confusion, create confusion for the users. Maybe they will be think that that button is not working. So what we have to do, we have to make a loader. That means when we call on that button, the loader will be started and loader will be getting end when the response is coming from the API finally. So here I have to write bool is loading, and that will be by default false. But we have to do one more thing here. For calling of that API, we have to write is loading, that will be true, and we have to update the widget state, so we write here say state. Okay, and when the response will be come from the API, we have to write here is loading false, and we have to update the state as well. And for if taking the effect of is loading, what we should do here, under that container, if that is loading, we have to show a circular progress indicator at the center of the screen. And if I call on that button call get API, as you can see that API calling time, that circular progress is showing. We can see it again, and we can show that API response hello viewers. Okay, now we have to do that for that post, put and delete, but there is a catch in the post API. As you can see, the JSON will be count, so we have to show it under a dialog. So first make the method so that we can call that post API. So here I write call post API, and we have to make the method at the bottom of that class. So here what we should write here, we have to write API caller. And one more thing here, first make it asynchronous, because that post API call will be await as well, so that will be post data, and here we have to post the param. So the param I give here, I give the name, so I here give the name as YouTube, give the time as, let's see what the time, 7:26 AM, so 7:26 AM. And here we have to provide the category. The category is mobile app development. The topic is API integration, and the language is Dart, because we are using programming language Dart in Flutter. Okay, now that will be give us a response data. Now we have to check one more thing. If you come here in that post data, you can see if the response port is not 200, that will be return our empty map. So what we can do in the main screen, data is empty, that means the response is not coming successfully. We have to show a snack bar here, so I copy here and I paste it here. Here I have to write, and if the data is not empty, that means the API call is successful. But just like get API, in the response data in the snack bar, as this is returning a JSON, we have to show it in the dialog. So what we have to do, here I make a common dialog, so here I write common dialog the data, and now we have to show that data in the dialog. So we write here show dialog. Here we have to provide that current context, and we have to make a widget here. Now here we write alert dialog, and here the alert, in the alert dialog we provide a insert padding. So we have to provide the padding from horizontally of 5 and vertically of 5 as well, vertically of 10, that will be better. Here we have to provide the title, so that title will be post API response, that is hard coded we written here, and we have to provide a style here as well, so that it will be looking good. So here I provide the text style having the font size of not 20 but 18, and already the font weight, that is font weight dot w600, that will be better enough. And as these two things is constant, we don't have to write anything as of now. I write the constant here. Now we have to show the content here. Okay, so here we can write here container, and in that container I write double dot max finite, and here I give the height of, let's say, 300. Okay, now let's make a child of it, and that child will be column. And here in that column, what we should do, we want all the elements at the center of that dialog. So I write main axis alignment dot center, and here I provide the children. So the first children name is modified name. So what I should do here, we have to write here modified name, and that modified name is that data is coming as a params of that method. And here we have to provide that key name of that JSON, so here I write modified name. In case there is parameter of key missing, we can make the null safety of it as well. Okay, now we can make a decent style of it so that it will be looking good. After that, we don't have to write the text style manually because we copy paste from here. Here we write the font size of 14 so that it will be fitted in the screen very much well. Now what we have to do, we have to give a significant space from the bottom. So here I write size box of height 5. Now what we have to do, we can copy that 2 times as of now. So here I write modified time, and here I have to write copy that modified time, and we have to paste it here. And here I copy that modified passcode key name, and I paste it here, and that will be modified passcode. Okay, and also we can show that data queries cat topic and language. So and I paste it here. So here and here and here, because the 3 parameter is coming under that queries here. Okay, we have to provide here category, so that will be queries under that category. So we have to copy that queries, and after that we can copy that cat key that is defining category, and we have to provide in that way. But there is chance that query that is coming as a map as well, inner map, that may be coming as a empty or null, or that query params may be not present at any point of time. So we have to make the null safety of it. So here I write here that operator that is checking if that is queries key and value is present, then that will be forward, as we seen in the null safety video as well. Okay, we have to copy that, and we have to paste it here as well, and also here we have to paste it, and here we have to write topic and language. So here the topic, and here I just copy that language key and I paste it here. Okay, now we have to write here language, and here we have to write. Now what we have to do, here the category is written already, so all of the parameters is right here. So I make a put reformat, and after that what we can do here, we have to call that common dialog after the data is coming from the API. Post API, I just copy that is loading, where loading is very much needed, otherwise the user will be getting confused. So I copy that to loading is from here. When the data is coming, I make that is loading false, and if the data is coming here as a response, if that is not empty, that means the valid data is present. So we have to provide that common dialog, and we can provide that data coming as a response to that common dialog. All the data will be so there. Okay, now what we have to do, we have to make a hot reload here, and here if I click on that call post API, the data is fetching, that way loading is showing, and as you can see in the dialog, all the data is showing. Modified name YouTube Dasgupta, that is really funny one, because in the API video you see that when we pass the name, that will be coming with the title, with the surname of Dasgupta. That the modified time, we write here that 7:26 AM I think. So we can remove that AM, and we can make a hot reload, and here instead of the YouTube, I write my name, because YouTube Dasgupta is really weird. So if I make a hot reload here, and if I call that call post API, the data is fetching and the data is showing here. The modified name is Arpan Dasgupta, modified time 7:26 AM, modified passcode, that is coming a unique passcode, that category, topic and language we provide here, that is showing here in that dialog. Okay, now what we should do here is just like calling the post API we have to call the update and delete API. So I make the copy of post API 2 times, and for the first copy I write the name here call update API, and for the second copy I write the name here call delete API. Okay, now in that call update API I write here API caller dot update data, and here in the update data only the param is needed. So here I provide a unique param name as update underscore param, so that we can identify the data. Okay, so that data will be come here, and as you can see here in that update data, when we send it here, that will be coming as a message. So what we should do here, instead of making it passing it through that common dialog, we can copy the code from that get API method, and here we can paste it here, because only the message that is coming here as a JSON, we should show the message here. So here I just write data, and that will be type of message. In case there is key is not present, that will be empty string. Okay, in the same way we can do that in the delete API. So here I also replace with that, and in the delete API, that is remove data API, if you call that, you can see that remove delete data as a message of JSON string is coming. Okay, now we should show it here, but there is a catch. We have to make it API caller dot delete data, and in the delete data as usual the param is only needed. So I write the param name as delete data, delete underscore data. Okay, so that we can identify that easily. Now we can remove that, and as that will be delete data, all the things is getting fine. Now one more thing is left, that is calling that update and delete that screen method from that button. So we have to call here call update API, and also we have to call here call delete API. Okay, now if we make a hot reload here, and if I click on that call update API, the data is fetching, and update data it is showing here as a response, because as you can see in the API update data is coming as a message. In the same way, if we call on the delete API, as you can see no data come from the post API. Okay, there is some problem is happening there. So let's see what the problem is there. Okay, that will be no data come from the delete API, and in the same way that will be no data will be come from that update API. Okay, so there is some problem is happening. Let's see what is that. Okay, we make it update data, that actually the, if you see here, that will be delete data. Sorry, we make a typo here, so we just copy here from that and we can paste it here. Okay, now if we make a hot reload here, and now if we call on that call get API, the data is fetching and the response is showing here remove or delete data, that is coming as a message response in that remove data, that is delete API. Okay, so in that way we can integrate different types of API in our Flutter application and provide the query and params easily through your Flutter app through the HTTP package. So that's all for today. Hope you love this video. If you love this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and don't forget to subscribe this channel. The next video of the series is coming very soon. Stay tuned for that. Have a nice day. Bye.